It should be recording. Okay, let's begin. We're on the Mishnah on Tes Vav Amud Aleph, a brand new Mishnah, and still on the topic of Shema and Amida and things like that, but a new topic over here. The opening line starts, Ha'umnin korin barosh ha'ilon. Umnin means workers. They can read the Shema when they're on the top of a tree, ubarosh hanidbach, and on the top of a wall of stones, or working to build a wall, whatever. They're standing on a wall, standing on the top of a tree. So let's look at the commentary here. It says the word umanim in the Talmudic literature generally means craftsmen. And as used here, perforce refers to the men building the wall of stones, inasmuch as no skill is required to pick fruits from a tree. If you're up on a tree, you're obviously, picking fruits. That's not a craftsman. But if you're on a wall, building a wall is a craft. So therefore, it's interesting, the Jerusalem Talmud amends the Mishnah to have it read, Hapoalim, the laborers can recite the Shema on the top of the tree, and then they change the word umnin, craftsmen may recite the Shema on the top of a wall of stones. So you can see there's the different wording, but it's the same idea. It doesn't change any of the meaning. Now the point is, the Mishnah speaks of where these employees were engaged in their labors when the time for saying the Shema arrived. So it says that they should pause and immediately perform the reading in where they're at. So in other words, it's the time of the Shema to come. I guess if they're going to wait any longer, they're going to miss the Shema or whatever, it's time to say the Shema. So the point is, you could say the Shema when you're up on top of a tree. And you could say the Shema when you are working on a wall. That's the point you could say. We'll see what the Chiddush is soon. Ma she'enan rashoyim lasos came b'tefillah. On the other hand, that's something they're not permitted to do in the case of the Amida. The Amida, if they want to say the Amida, you can't say it on top of a tree and you can't say it on top of a wall. Why is that? So the commentary tells us here, because Tefillah, the Amida, that's requests of mercy from Hashem, and that requires special concentration. Now, when you're standing on the top of a tree or on a pile of stones, the first thing you should concentrate on is not to fall off. That's the first thing. There's a great fear of falling, and you got to concentrate, keep your balance and all those things. And therefore, you're not going to be able to concentrate as much on the Amida. So therefore, what they have to do is they got to go down from the tree. Now, obviously, this takes time, it could be very high up on a tree, and therefore they got to go down from the tree, or they got to go down from the wall, and then say the Amida. On the other hand, by the Shema, since we already rule that you only have to have kavanah for the first sentence of the Shema, that's the only one that requires intense concentration. So you could say it while standing on the top of the tree or on a wall of stones, because for that, whatever it takes, 10 seconds or whatever, to say the Shema with good concentration, that you could do without concern of falling off from the wall. So that's the basic difference between those two prayers. Second point of the Mishnah, still focusing on the idea of concentration. Chosen poter mekriya Shema laila harishona va'ad motzei Shabbos. A chosen, a groom, is exempt from saying the nighttime Kriya Shema on the first night of his marriage, on the wedding night, until Saturday night. We'll see why, because the commentary says, in the old days, the custom was to marry a virgin on a Wednesday night. The reason they married a virgin on a Wednesday night is so if he finds out on the wedding night that his wife is not a virgin, as she purported to be, then he could go to Bezdin the next day, because the Bezdin, the courts, were open on Monday and Thursdays. So therefore, if Wednesday night he finds she's not a virgin, then he would go to court and make his claim that she wasn't a virgin. That's a whole Gemara Ksuvas, and they go into a whole discussion. Why can't you do it Tuesday night? And they say, well, by from Tuesday to Thursday, she may appease him and he won't go to court. And why don't they marry Sunday night? We'll give a whole discussion of it. That's not relevant. All we need to know is the custom was on Wednesday night. So therefore, he's exempt Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and until Saturday night through Saturday night, meaning to say, or until he has consummated the marriage. That's the point. The person is obviously a man. Remember, we're dealing in a society that's not promiscuous, and this young man has not been engaged in intimacy before, and neither has the woman. So the first time you're doing that with a stranger, so to speak, so your mind is very distracted on the mitzvah and everything that's involved in having marital relationships for the first time. And there's a great concern, that she may not be a virgin, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, he's exempt from saying the Kriya Shema for that time. But interestingly, in the brackets, it says the groom is also exempt from the morning Kriya Shema. Now, finally, what if he didn't have relations with her by Saturday night? Then he becomes obligated to saying the Shema, because after 4 nights already, he should be feeling more at ease being with her. Even if he doesn't find her a virgin, he'll forgive her or whatever. So it's the first 4 nights. Now, obviously, if he consummates the marriage on the first night, that's it. Then the next day, he's saying the Kriya Shema. But that's the idea. So again, we're talking about the idea of what happened over here. Everything just jumped on me here. 1 second. Where do I go? Let me go back to the menu. Yeah, 1 second. Sorry about that. I don't know why that just jumped there. Okay, back to normal. Okay.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So why is he not exempt from saying the Shema in other types of stressful situations?
Moore's going to talk about that.
Okay.
Moore's going to talk about that. And the basic answer is going to be that it's a stressful situation that's a mitzvah. Okay, so since he's engaged in doing a mitzvah of Hashem, and it's a mitzvah that's creating stress, that's where the exemption is. Because if you recall, you have to say the Shema has to be your priority, and it comes before anything else. But if Hashem is telling you to do a mitzvah, getting married is a mitzvah. And it's not only a mitzvah, but it's the kind of a mitzvah where there's a tremendous amount of stress. Again, it's hard in our non-moralistic world today. People say, what's so stressful having sex with somebody? The answer is, if you're a moral person and you've never done it before, it is stressful. It's, being with a man being with a woman, they're not looking at Netflix every day and lusting for these things. So it's a stressful mitzvah, and that means Hashem, your focus is on a different mitzvah, and it's hard to concentrate on the mitzvah of the Shema. That's going to be the basic answer that you'll find a few pages from now. However, remember, the Mishnah qualifies all this, again, by saying, Im lo asa ma'aseh, he had not yet consummated the marriage. Once he's had relations with her, even before Saturday night, he's obligated to Mishnah to say the Shema, because the mitzvah has been accomplished and the stress is also gone. So that's point number 2 of the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah is now going to bring a story that would seem to contradict the statement we just made. There was a story that happened to Rab Gamliel. Shenasa Isha, he married a woman, and at the wedding, right, in the chasana, what happened? V'kara Laila Rishona, and he said the Shema on the first night. On the wedding night, he said the Shema. So Amrul Talmidov, his students saw him doing this, and they know that the halacha is contrary to that. So they asked the Rebbe, Limaditanu Rabbeinu shechasan pater mikriya shema. Rebbe, you taught us that a groom is exempt from the kriya shema on the wedding night. So we're trying to understand why you're saying the shema. Amar lahem, he said to them, Eini shaveh lachem, I will not listen to you. Levatel haimeni malchus shamayim afilu shachas, to nullify saying the shema and accepting the yoke of heaven, even for one moment. Okay, what does that mean? So he's saying that the incident does not contradict the Mishnah's ruling, as Tosa says. It says if the groom is of sufficient stature, that he's confident he can say the Shema with the proper concentration, he can perform it. In other words, even though the Mishnah gives us a rule that you're exempt from saying the Kriya Shema, remember, it doesn't say he's not allowed to say the Kriya Shema. It says he's exempt from saying the Kriya Shema because the Torah doesn't demand and force you to concentrate on the Shema when you're concentrating on a mitzvah. However, someone like Rabbi Gamliel, who's the Tzaddik Hador, who's thinking about Hashem all the time and is never off target in his focus to Hashem, and has the type of a mind where he could be focused on a mitzvah that may even cause anxiety, but he's totally focused. He's so dovuk to Hashem that he could consider that. So he is not needing that exemption. And therefore, others, so you'll see later on, there's going to be a Mishnah where it's going to say that, and what if just regular Joe Blow says, oh, I'm a chassan and I'm exempt, but I'm going to say it, the Shema. So the Mishnah is going to say later on, you know what? Not everybody who thinks he's so spiritual should assume the mantle of behavior that's not fitting his spiritual profile. And don't say the Shema, because you're going to just be saying the Shema without any kavanah. So we'll see. That's going to be discussion later on. Okay,
so Rabbi,
yes, sir.
I thought that we take the opposite view, that nobody has enough kavanah anyway, so they say that.
Good. So that is now, that statement is already from the Shulchan Aruch in the 1500s. So that statement is 1,100 years later. So 1,100 years later, a lot of things change, and all kinds of kavanah changed as well. So therefore, a chassan is not exempt anymore. So that's where the halacha changes. Okay, good point. But at least in the times of the Mishnayos, that was the halacha. Just like we've said other halachas, like if a person does not concentrate on the first paragraph of the Amida, you have to repeat the entire Amida, to which the Ramah says, but nowadays, that people don't concentrate at all on their Amida anyway. So if you're going to make him say a second time, he's going to not concentrate a second time. So unfortunately, there's halachas that are a result of a much lower spiritual level that we have. So nowadays, how much kavanah do we have when we say the Shema? I mean, we're talking, there's kavanah and there's kavanah. So nowadays, a chassan, you know, the amount of kavanah he has all year long, he could have that amount of kavanah on his wedding night as well. That's the basic point. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the first point in the Mishnah about the workers on the tree and on the wall. So now there's going to be a brisa that elaborates on what the Mishnah said very cryptically. Tana Rabbah, ha'umnin korin barosha ilan ubarosha nidbach. The workers can read the Shema on the top of a tree or on the top of a wall. Umispalin barosha. So now umispalin. You see, we're changing this. It's not just saying but they can daven on the wall and on the tree. But it says now, umispalim barosh hazayis ubarosh hata'ela. But they could say the Amida on the top of an even on the top of an olive tree and on the top of a fig tree. In other words, it seems that these trees are a little bit harder. Now, why? Since an olive tree and a fig tree have many branches, a person able to stand there comfortably and without fear of falling. Okay, so interestingly, so hence he is able to maintain the proper concentration for prayer. Alternatively, the presence of many branches makes it difficult to climb down from these trees. Were the workers required to do so, they would be taking undue time away from their jobs. Hence, they would pray in the tree for that. So what we're saying is, although we learned in our Mishnah, you don't pray in a tree because you're afraid you're going to fall. So what we're saying here, but they may say the Amida on top of an olive tree and on top of a fig tree, because, well, at least according to the first shot, it's more secure and there's nothing to be concerned about. However, so it's not really arguing on the Mishnah, because you see the next line says, Vishar kol ilanos, but any other trees that either don't have that type of security or are much easier to climb down, so Yordim Lamata, you go down from the tree, Umispami say the Amida. So it really is pretty consistent with our Mishnah. It's just adding a little detail that if the tree is a more secure tree, then you could say the Amida. Or if it's way too difficult to go down, you say the Amida over there. Now the Brisa continues. Now, Ubalabayis. Now that we were talking about workers until now. What about the owner of the field, the owner of the orchard? He's obviously working too, but obviously he has a different relationship to the owner than the workers have to the owner. So therefore, when we're talking about the owner of the tree or the field, ben kach u ben kach, either way, in other words, whether he's working on a fig, or an olive tree, or other tree, doesn't matter. Yored lamata umispalel. He has to go down and say the Amida. Why? And there you see the footnote, that since he's not working for others, he has to take time and go down from the tree, which means the workers, they're working for the boss. And you know what? When you're working for a boss, either you arrange your davening schedule at a different time. You don't, work when it's davening time. You don't arrange your work schedule for davening time. You say, oh, boss, I got to work, but I got to say the Amida. And, all of a sudden, since, if the alternative is working, right? So he's going to have lots of kavanah with his Amida, and he's going to spend lots of time and go down the tree, whatever. It's going to waste a lot of time. So since he's davening on the boss's time, then just daven in the tree, all right? Obviously, going down the tree takes time, so you have to make the most efficient use of the time that he's paying you to work, and therefore, so they have to daven in the tree, get it done with quicker. But if you're the boss, well, you're not cheating yourself because you're working for yourself. So therefore, go down the tree and pray properly. It takes more time. Okay, and it gives you a reason though, but you're already here since he's not working. But the boss goes down because his mind isn't totally at ease when you're standing high on top of a tree, even though it's a little bit better, but still not. So see in 23, although we are lenient with regards to workers, since they are in the hire of others, we are not lenient when a person is working for himself. Now, only in the case of prayer do we differentiate between employees and the self-employed. That's the difference. But it didn't mention about the Shema any differences. Remember, in the case of the Shema, one ruling applies to all. In other words, even one who works for himself may recite the Shema on the top of the tree. Because again, you don't need a lot of time for the concentration for that, so you could say the Shema properly. The reason the Brisa mentions only workers in its Shema ruling is because its subsequent prayer ruling applies only to workers. So in other words, when so the boss is the same as the workers when it comes to Shema. We didn't mention the boss because the workers is where the real difference is between Shema and the Amida. So in the Shema, when it only takes a few seconds, so just concentrate there and don't waste time going down the tree that's going to be taking away from what you're working for the boss. By the Amida, if it's a regular tree, which is really dangerous, you need a lot of concentration. Well, you got to dive in the Amida, okay, but don't waste that much time by going. So therefore, you got to go down. But if you're up in a fig tree where it's much more secure, although not 100% secure, but much more secure, than daven up there. So that becomes the difference. Make differences. But if you're the boss, well, yeah, for Shema, it's only 10 seconds anyway, so no need to go down for that. But for any other tree, even a more secure tree, the boss has to go down because he's not working for the boss, and he should be in the best place to say the Amidah, which needs much more concentration. So it comes out, you see, that we're kind of being a little bit strict on the workers, that although we recognize in a much more precarious tree, he has to go down because it's not possible to say the Amidah, even though it's on the boss's time. But in a tree that is less precarious, yet precarious, because if it wasn't precarious at all, then why isn't the boss saying it up in the tree also? But obviously, it takes away a little bit of the concentration. So therefore, he should go down to have much more concentration. But the workers, I guess Chazal are balancing the obligation to pray to God and the obligation to have an honest time of working for your boss. And therefore, when it's not that dangerous, we tell them to stay up in the tree. So that was the Bryce. Okay. So now, the Gemara now is going to apparently show there's a conflict between our Mishnah and the Bryce. And what's the conflict? So Rami le Rav Mori bra debas Shmuel l'Rava. So Mori, who's the son of Shmuel's daughter, pointed out a contradiction to Rava. So what's the contradiction between the Bryce and the Mishnah? So now, we learned in our Mishnah, ha'umdim kari barosha ilan barosha nitbach. You said that the workers, they could read the Shema on the top of a tree and on the top of a wall of bricks. Alma, what does that tend to say? Lo boy kavana. You don't have to have kavana because it's saying the workers could say the Shema even while they're engaged in labor. Okay? In other words, it just says you read it. So it would seem to say you don't have to have any kavana when you're saying the Shema. However, for Aminu, I'm going to ask you a question. Hakari Shema, Sar Shechavin is Libo. But we know there's a Mishnah that says that when you read the Shema, you have to have kavanah. So what's going on? How do we know that? The Brisa says, the Mishnah says, Shenemer Shema Yisrael. It says Shema Yisrael. Ulahalnomer, and a little further out in the Shema, it says, Haskes, be attentive, Ushma Yisrael, and listen, Jewish people. So what's the connection? Malahalan Baskes, just like over there, the hearing is with attentiveness. Afghan Bahaskes, so it is with attentiveness. Meaning you got the same word Shema, so the Shema has to be with attentiveness. So when you say the Shema, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So that's clear. So that Brisa says you must pay attention when you're saying the Shema. And now you tell me workers, while they're working, okay, they can go and say the Shema. So how do you resolve that contradiction? Now, we've already answered it by the way I explained it. Do you have the phone?
Yeah.
Can you just leave it here?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to need it soon from Air. So that's the questions. That was the question that Rami asked to Rava. So look at this. Ishtik, Rava was silent. He didn't have an answer. Fascinating. So Amar Le, so Rava then said to Rav Mori, who asked the question, he says, Yidi Shmiel, have you heard anything about this? In other words, maybe you heard an answer. Maybe you wanted to hear what I had to answer, but maybe you heard an answer. So yeah, I did. Amar Le, so Rav Mori said, Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. This is what Rav Sheshes said to give his explanation. So he says, yes, when he qualifies the Mishnah that says the workers can say it, yes, they can read up in the tree, but only provided that they interrupt their work and they say it. Okay, to have the concentration, that's the point. So when the question was asked, it assumed when the Mishnah says workers can read the Shema when they're in the tree, we just figure it's say Shema while you work. You know, that's what the simple understanding was. So the answer is no, they can read it up in the tree, but obviously for 10 seconds, they stop working. You don't pick the fruits while you're saying the Shema. Just stand at attention at the tree, close your eyes, and say the Shema for 10 seconds. And that way you've concentrated on. And the point being, though, you don't got to go down from the wall. You don't got to go down from the tree and spend all that time, provided that you're concentrating when you're saying the Shema. So that's the answer that he gives to that question. Okay, but we're not out of the woods yet, because this interpretation is challenged from another brisa. V'hatanya, we learn in another brisa, Beis Hillel Omrim, Beis Hillel says regarding Shema and working, Beis Shammai says, Oiskim b'malacha v'lachtan v'karim. A man can be engaged in his work and simultaneously say the Shema. So what's going on? That you're telling me a guy can be engaged in his work and say the Shema? So something's not working out over here. You're saying that, well, the reason he could say the Shema in the tree is because he's concentrating, he stops in his work. And Beis Hillel says, no, you got to stop in your working. So Gemara answers, lo kasha, that's not a kasha, because that which the Mishnah says you stop, ha beperik rishon, that's talking about the first chapter, where it's the Mishnah that requires the workers to interrupt their work before saying the Shema. That's speaking of the first portion of it. That one really needs a lot of concentration. Now, interesting, this section requires that. Tosfos points out the Gemara does not mean the entire first portion, as I've been saying the whole time, for our passage involves and follows Rava, who said earlier that special concentration are only required for the first verse. So when it says Perik Rishon, it means the first verse in the first chapter. That's the way Tosfos understands this. Rif, on the other hand, maintains that even though Rava does not require special concentration in their first portion, he agrees that the workers must cease their labors while reciting it. For reciting the Shema while working, they render the recital a casual affair. Okay, fine. Either way, it's only the first line or the first paragraph. It's not that long. But when Beis Hillel says you can work while you're saying the Shema, Habaperik Sheni, that's talking about the second section, which doesn't require full concentration. So that becomes the answer. So the simpler reason, so it comes out, our Mishnah says the workers can say the Shema. Yes, it means they have to stop saying the Shema, so they have concentration, because you're not allowed to work while you're saying the Shema. How do we square that with Beis Hillel says you are allowed to work when you're saying the Shema? So the answer is it depends on which part of the Shema. So therefore, the workers that must stop only for the first line or the first paragraph of the Shema, which requires much more concentration to fulfill the basic mitzvah, while the next paragraph does not require as much concentration, and therefore they can work while they're doing that. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop before we get to the next question. So we're going to leave it at there, and there'll be further brises and questions on that, but we got to a good place to stop. Okay, have a good day, everybody, and we will see you soon. Let's hope the weather gets a little bit better. Okay?
Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
1 second. New shares. Stop share. Stop share.
Archie, come here. I'm gonna give her more.